Hello, hello. This is Damon Arnold. We're getting things set up for the show, but America's Heroes Group Roundtable live stream digital media show. Today is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024, and October is Breast Cancer, Mental Health, National Disability, and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I am your host, U.S. Army Flight Surgeon and Iraq Combat Medic Veteran Colonel Dr. Damon Arnold. And we have many, many shows today, and they're going to be excellent. I want you to pay attention for the full time that we are on the air from 5 to 8 p.m. And I have the first guests who are here. There are three very, very important people that you should know. And they are from the Jesse Brown VA Medical Center. Hey, yeah, I'm broadcasting. You hear me?
Hello.
Okay. Hello, hi.
Hi.
Yes, I'm actually going to introduce the three of you. I think they had to go through another link to get everyone on. So it looks like everyone is joining now. Okay. Hi. And we have one more to pop in, and then I'm going to introduce all three of you. Okay, while we're waiting for Chasitie to join. Oh, Chasitie's here, Asya, and there's one more we're waiting for. But let's start, and I'm going to give you a introduction. But we have three panelists today that are going to talk to you about a very critical issue about women's health for women veterans. So women veterans are making up almost 20% of the force today, and people don't really realize how important it is to really focus on women's issues, and that they are part of the essential force that protects this country every day, both domestically and overseas. So many women are involved also in the federal government and in many other branches of our country that allow you to sleep at night. And so I'm going to start with introducing our panelists. Dr. Sarada Deshpande is a board-certified internist and women's health medical director at Jesse Brown VA Medical Center. Dr. Deshpande provides leadership and guidance with a collaborative approach across multiple clinical services, such as primary care, specialty care, gynecology, radiology, mental health, emergency medicine, physical therapy, whole health, social work, and community care for the departments throughout the VA. She coordinates those and helps with her leadership. She is an integral part of the Jesse Brown VA's mission to provide excellent, high quality, and evidence-based care to women veterans. Hello, Dr. Deshpande.
Hello, sir. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi. We also have Chasitie Levesque. She is with the Jesse Brown VA Medical Center, has her doctorate from the University of Illinois, go U of I, and is a clinical pharmacy specialist, providing care to women veterans and veterans in general in multiple areas, including primary care, smoking cessation, and anticoagulation clinics. She created one of the first women's health clinical pharmacy services in 2005, which was followed by the initiation of the Chicago Heights VA clinical pharmacy services in 2006. In 2015, Dr. Levesque joined the Veterans Integrated Services Network, which is VISN, VISN 12, as the Network Women Veterans Program Manager. This is actually the first person to do this as a pharmacist within the VA system. And she's also a clinical program manager. She is a member of several national VA programs. We would be on for a couple of hours if we want to list all of them, but she's very, very active, least to say. Asya Brodsky, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing the first name right, Asya. And she's a licensed clinical social worker, which is close to my heart. My mother was a social worker from her age of 21 to 91. So she in New York City, but she was really involved. She also, works with addiction medicine for alcohol and drug counseling. She has a CST as well, is a social worker, and who has been the Women's Veterans Program Manager at the Jesse Brown VA Medical Center since March of 2021. In her role, Asya serves as an advocate for women veterans and is responsible for the administration, monitoring, and evaluation of the Women Veterans Health Program. Today's discussion, since we have these three highly qualified people to talk about this subject, is Jesse Brown VA's Women's Health Breast Cancer Awareness. As I mentioned in the opening, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I'm going to actually move to Chasitie first, and I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to tell us about the women veterans population and priority areas for the VA.
Well, thank you. And let me just first say I'm really excited to be here and share the great things we're working on in VA, and particularly at Jesse Brown. The first thing I want to share with you all is that we now know there are more than 2 million women veterans living in the United States. And of those 2 million veterans, we have more than 900,000 enrolled for VHA services. We want more to enroll, so please let's spread the word through this opportunity. I want to share with you that women are the fastest growing population in VA, and we tout that everywhere we go with our leadership as we work on expanding our programs. We know there's more male veterans, but women are the fastest growing population, and so that's really exciting. I want to point out that we know our women are younger than their male counterparts. They're more racially diverse, and there's a higher proportion of them that have service-connected disabilities when we compare them to male veterans. And what that means to us is that we need to build out programming to support this population. So whether she's service-connected for chronic pain or PTSD, we want to make sure we have what's needed to support her. And the last thing I really want to drill home about our women veterans are they are often the core of their families. They are caretakers to their children, to their spouses, to their parents, to their friends, and they often put themselves last. So it's our job to make sure that we are really supporting them and providing flexible ways for them to access the healthcare. When I think of top priorities, there are many priorities, but hands down, the top priorities probably include our comprehensive and quality care that we want to provide them. We want them to have one provider where she can get her primary care, her chronic disease, her gender-specific care, such as mammography, which we're talking about breast cancer awareness, so that she's not having to see multiple providers. We want that one provider to take care of her. Our next priority area probably includes reproductive health. And when we think of reproductive health, we think of the life cycle of our women veterans. So in her younger years, we're thinking of contraception care, maybe preconception care. Infertility services may be needed. Pregnancy. We're not delivering babies in the VA yet, but we do support our patients and pay for their services in the community. We do have maternity care coordinators that follow our women through their pregnancy, as well as 1 year postpartum, which could be a vulnerable time after delivering. So we want to make sure we're helping them access care if they need anything. And then as that cycle continues through life, we transition to menopause. And so I would also share that gynecology has been a big area that we have been working on increasing in VA. Jesse Brown's done an outstanding job with increasing their presence of gynecology for our women veterans. And then the next priority area I want to share with you is care coordination. Care coordination is essential for our women veterans. I just mentioned that when patients are pregnant, they're getting that care in the community. So we want care coordinators to help them navigate that. And care coordination is essential with breast health. So with getting a mammogram, it could be a little overwhelming getting a mammogram, and it's certainly overwhelming if you find out that there's some unfavorable, news where you need more testing. And so those care coordinators are essential to help our patients navigate the healthcare system and make sure we're getting records in the VA so that we're having great communication with the patients.
Comprehensive program, and it sounds very well integrated. There are a lot of different issues that come up in that, and where women haven't really received enough attention, in cardiovascular care, in care general, right? So, but Asya, what services are offered in the women's clinic? That's really interesting that they're
Sure.
building that section out.
Yes, so we definitely are growing and we're proud of the care that we provide. So we have a Model 3 clinic, which is called a Comprehensive Health Center. We have a clinic that's specifically designated for women. It ensures privacy and dignity. It's a separate space from primary care. And so the things that we offer when we think about comprehensive care, we're talking about care for both acute and chronic illnesses, as well as gender-specific care, some of the things that Dr. Levesque was talking about. So we're talking about, cervical cancer screening, preventative care. We're talking about breast cancer screenings, all gender specific to someone who identifies as female. And then again, as Dr. Levesque said, we also have care coordination services. We're proud of having a very robust mental health and social work team. We've got a full-time social worker within the clinic. We have two specialty care programs adjacent and connected to our clinic, which is eating disorders and addiction treatment. We also are very proud to have peer support in our clinic. So when women veterans feel like they can't open up to someone who hasn't walked the walk and been in their shoes, we have a peer that very much supports the care that they receive and helps them link to services. And then mental health, we've got a full-time mental health psychiatrist in the clinic. We have two full-time providers, one working in something called PCMHI, which is primary care mental health integration, which means that if someone is seen in primary care and it seems like there may be an issue and they need to talk to someone that day, they're able to be linked and connected to care. And then we also have someone within our clinic embedded who's part of the outpatient mental health team, so that they can be seen for longer term care as needed, even if it's episodic. And we're very proud of this because we know women are affected by additional stressors and may present with needs around psychosocial support. And then, when I talk about comprehensive care, we've got PACT teams. So PACT stands for Patient Aligned Care Teams. And so we've got a provider working with them. We've got 3 MDs in our clinic offering comprehensive primary care. We have a nurse connected, and this is how they sort of coordinate services when it comes to documentation, when it comes to preventative shots, things like that. We have an MSA, which is our front desk staff to help. We've got LPNs that are wonderful and that they do triage. And we're also very proud. And then of course, as Dr. Levesque mentioned, we've got gynecology and we've got pharmacy to help provide care. And we're very proud of the fact that every provider within our clinic is female identified to be able to relate to the population.
Oh, fantastic. That's really very incredible. I mean, it sounds like you're really meeting women's needs where they are. And I have an incredible leader coming on right now, Sarada. I'm going to ask
Yeah.
you a question because I was really impressed by your background, what you've been doing at the Jesse Brown VA.
Yeah.
It sounds like I'm not sure why you can even be here unless you have 10 clones. I'm seeing one of the clones here.
Right. Thank you so much for inviting all of us. And this is a great occasion to spread the word for the breast cancer screening. I just want to add a couple of points to Asya Brodsky's, introduction to our teams. I do want to mention, we have a full-time gynecology service here. We do major surgeries in our hospital, and one of our gynecologists is Urogyne trained, and we are planning to start another specialized procedures called urodynamics pretty soon. So I just want to add that there, and coming to breast cancer screening, and as I mentioned, this is a great time to discuss about it. As we all know, breast cancer, if detected very early, it's curable. We do not have mammograms right now in our VA, but we do have, as Asya Brodsky mentioned and Dr. Levesque, Chasitie mentioned, we do have a great team here, including a mammography care coordinator, as well as a great community care department, where the provider, the clinician, orders the mammograms, and the community care reaches out to the patients and the outside vendors and making sure that this gets done. I do want to talk a little bit about screening, and when we talk about screening, we are talking about doing tests to find things that the patients do not have any symptoms yet, like, for example, with the breast cancer. And this screening, the best way to screen for breast cancer is mammograms. This is been there for age-old techniques, and it is a little uncomfortable. A mammogram is essentially an X-ray where, the breast is placed in between two views, and we take a shot. It's a little uncomfortable, but it's not extremely painful. And this is the best way to detect breast cancer early on. And as I mentioned earlier, if we detect it early, it is curable. And when we talk about screening guidelines, there are several societies and several expert teams who recommend different things for screening. But in general, we recommend that every woman should discuss with their primary care provider at the age of 40 to start talking about mammograms. And we follow American Cancer Society guidelines in our VA system. And mind you, these guidelines are applicable only to average risk women. By that, I mean, they do not have any other high risk factors for breast cancer, like known history of breast cancer already, or a strong family history of breast cancer, or a known history of a gene mutation in the family. And those are very different guidelines than the one I'm talking about today. It's a regular average risk women should start talking about mammograms at the age of 40 and start getting mammograms every year from 45 till 54, and after 54, every other year. And after 75, if the woman is doing well without any health medical issues and is going to live for at least another 10 years or so, we continue to do the mammograms. However, recently, another expert society came up and said there may not be much value after 75, but we need to take into consideration patient factors, patient preference, and making sure these are average risk women when we talk about breast cancer screening. I do want to talk a little bit about what we do in our clinic when, with the primary care providers. We have primary care providers, as Asya Brodsky mentioned, at the main facility, as well as in our community-based outpatient clinics. And all these women's health providers, they're all called designated women's health providers. That means they have to have certain kind of training, certain number of credits every 2 years for us to retain that designation. So the main focus is with women's health issues like cervical cancer, pap smears, or mammograms and things like that. So we are very fortunate. We have at the main facility, we have 3 MDs, and in our CBOX, every facility has 2 designated women's health providers. So the first step for any woman who is listening and seeing us today is to reach out to their primary care providers, to discuss about the mammograms if they are 40, or if they're already getting mammograms, to reach out to them to get an order for another mammogram. I want to talk about a little bit about breast exams too in this portion for the screening, because this is a common thing that all women ask me about. Again, when we make guidelines, we talk only about average risk women, not high risk patients, as I mentioned early on. High risk patients are very different. So for average risk women, we do not recommend any self breast examinations or any breast examinations by a clinical provider. There's a lot of data showing that it might lead to false positive tests and unnecessary biopsies and things like that. But having said that, if you are hearing me, you see a change in your breast, any changes, any skin changes, color changes, size or nipple discharge or anything, please reach out to your providers. As I mentioned, as Asya Brodsky mentioned, we have a great team here, and one of our main person in this whole mammogram thing is our mammography care coordinator, who actually acts as a liaison between the patient, between the facility, between the community care and things like that. As Chasitie Levesque mentioned early on, getting a mammogram itself is stressful. On top of that, we are sending people out, but we have a great way of tracking all these orders, all these patients. And if there is any abnormality in the initial screening mammogram, the radiologists, the doctors who read these mammograms might recommend further testing, which includes a diagnostic mammogram or an ultrasound. So my request to all the women out there is to reach out to your doctors or nurse practitioners or your providers, ask for a mammogram order, and please get your mammograms in time, because we know there is so much data that's been shown and so many advances in breast cancer now. Even if the breast cancer is like found in a later stage, the outcomes are much, much better now. And the best way to detect all of this is starting with the mammogram again. I think I made my pitch for mammograms. I'm not sure if you have any questions on this screening.
I was part of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom, and one of the things I thought about, just a couple of days ago, is the timing of things. And time goes by very, very quickly.
Exactly.
And that was 2003, 2004, 2005, 2007, and we are almost 20 years later, right at this point. So those people who are there are going into their 40s, the women who are serving, and this is the time that they really need to be critically thinking about this and making sure that they are, going for the proper care and guidance. So excellent, Dr. Deshpande. So how is a woman veteran able to be screened for breast cancer, Isa?
Sorry, I was checking to make sure I wasn't on mute. Like Dr. Deshpande said, right now we don't have the equipment to be able to complete screening on site, but that is something that we plan to obtain within the facility, and we're very proud of this. So we will have a mammography suite within Jesse Brown. And so right now, a woman veteran is able to be screened by being connected to our mammography coordinator, after the primary care provider, being connected to the mammography coordinator, and through community care. So community care will work with veterans to identify a location, a time, and a date for a mammography visit. And then those visits are reviewed to make sure that providers are alerted of any significant findings and notified within a set amount of time. We track this carefully because we know the vital importance of making sure that someone has results, especially abnormal results, within a given period. And so then our mammography coordinator reviews all of these breast imaging results, including biopsies, and she follows up with veterans and providers after a provider first notifies a veteran of what those results are. Our coordinator is full-time. She's responsible for assisting with orders and appointment scheduling. And like Dr. Deshpande said, serves as a liaison for veterans in the community. So our mammography coordinator is there full-time. Our community care mammography coordinator is also there full-time. And this is quite unique to a lot of the facilities within our region, within our VISN. And we're very proud of having that available. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Sarada, there's one thing, how has breast cancer screening been expanded? Because I know there is a nexus with the Service Act, and that there are other things that are going on that sort of highlight that. So can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. The Service Act was established to make sure that women veterans who are deployed to various places during certain time periods might have been exposed to toxic chemicals. So as of today, we do not have a direct evidence that this exposure causes breast cancer. There's a lot more research going on, and the national and central office is working with subject matter experts in that, and they came out with these guidelines for all women to be screened for breast cancer if they are exposed to these chemicals. So that screening includes, number one, where they served, what is the time period they served. Then number two, their own personal risk factors, like if they already have cancer, or if they have a family history, as I mentioned earlier, or if they have a genetic mutation in there. All of this are pulled into one algorithm, and that actually tells us what needs to be done next. If somebody has a strong family history already and they are exposed to these chemicals, then we do have another great service in the VA that is called genomic service. They are not located in our facility, but they are located out in Utah, and they do virtual appointments for us. So, and depending on this risk calculation, the provider and the women veteran, it's a discussion between them to see what needs to be done. If they're already at 40 and the algorithm says that patient qualifies for a mammogram, it's no brainer, because at 40 we start screening anyway. But if the woman is less than 30, the things are a little different, because younger women have dense breast tissue called more milk glands, and we do not recommend mammograms less than 30, but if they have a strong family history and a strong chemical exposure, and the patient and the woman veteran feels that she would need some kind of screening, then we will order the mammograms, because we updated our orders to make that notation whether they're exposed to toxic chemicals or not. So we kind of know, and don't get charged for these things, So this Service Act is we just started doing that recently, and we are trying to reach out. And one of our coordinators is actually helping us out with this Service Act screening. She pulls a list of patients who needs to be screened and tries to get appointments for them in the clinics. And, and it also takes a good 5 to 10 minutes of questionnaire for the patient, for the woman veteran to answer. Then we can decide whether that woman veteran needs a mammogram or not. The reason I want to emphasize in very young women is if their tissue is very dense, there can be a chance for false positives that can lead to unnecessary biopsies, unnecessary testing too. So this is a very intimate discussion, basically between the provider and the patient. After they
Okay, thank you very much, Deshpande. Well, we're actually running out of time.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to turn to Chasitie, and I want you to tell us, how can someone access VA services for breast cancer screening and other gender-specific screenings? I know there's a phone number, and
Yes. I want to share with you, for our patients at Jesse Brown or in the Chicagoland area, please call us at 312-569-8387. You also can reach out to our national help desk or help customer service that's open 24/7, and it's 1-855-VA-WOMEN or 1-855-829-6636.
Oh, fantastic. And the Jesse Brown Women's Clinic number is 312-569-6246. And also there's an assist linkage at JB with a person is It's Isa. Yeah, I guess I can say it. Isa Brodsky at 312-569-5933. I hope you do. I'm really very, very pleased with what you're doing. Thank you from my heart as a male veteran for women's veterans. Stay with us. Stay with us. We have incredible programs coming up. Stay with us, and we will be right back.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618.
I'm Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
Information and resources are empowered intentionally.
Hello, hello. Welcome back. Welcome back. We are going to have an incredible time right now. I am Colonel Dr. Damon Arnold. I am with America's Heroes Group Roundtable live stream digital media show. And today is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. October is Breast Cancer, Mental Health, National Disability, and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I want you to get ready for an incredible thing about taxes. It's some people fear that word, but we have someone who is an expert in that area. He's going to talk to you about the taxes. Most people start running when they hear the tax man is coming. But we have Ronald G. Murdock, a U.S. Army major and Illinois National Guard veteran. He is an expert in the area of real estate and taxes. So our discussion is going to center around veteran business owner R.G. Murdock, Realty, and tax services. How are you doing, Ron?
I'm doing well, Colonel. How about yourself?
Okay, good. What should I be scared of in this upcoming year? Probably not getting your services, right?
Well, the biggest thing is for right now, if you haven't prepared your taxes yet, and you were on the extension is over. It expires October 15th. So you really have maybe 13 days or so left before the IRS will assess you a penalty for filing late. So that's the biggest news now, for the people who do on those extensions, they need to get their taxes done. And also too, even if you're not on extension, the IRS charges you every month when you are late and if you owe. And so even if you're not on an extension, you still need to get your taxes prepared to avoid any more interest and penalties for filing late.
Familiar with that? I'm going to say charge per month if your taxes are late?
Right. They charge interest like 7%.
Wow, 7%.
7%. Yeah. Yeah. And it can get it, it can get expensive.
Yeah. So what do you think people need to do? Because if you're filing late or you're asking for an extension, probably people are struggling trying to get their tax situation together in order to file, and they have delayed things because they're trying to get their paperwork together. They haven't thought about it, maybe. So what is your advice, going forward? This is 2024. We are in October, and November, December are going to come really fast. So the end of the tax year is going to be, the last day of December, and we're going to a new year. So what should people be doing right now? I mean, so they can avoid having to file late or have that tax, interest rate applied to their account, and it ended up in this situation that you're talking about now, where you have to tell them October 15th, hey, if you haven't filed, you're really going to be in more trouble.
Right. And, and the thing about extensions, the extension was due April 15th. And years ago, they used to give you 2 extensions, but now they only give you 1.
Oh.
So October 15th is like it. There's no more second extensions. So what people should do, it was two groups of people, I guess. Ones who had already done the taxes. The biggest thing they need to do is have their records correct, especially if they have like rental property. Keep their bills up to date as far as the documentation. If they did repairs, if they did, if they paid for the utilities, things that come up, they need those. So in January, they can get all of their information, on to their tax return. Also, too, come November, somewhere about the 3rd week in November, they don't allow any more electronic filing for the year. So if you don't have your taxes prepared at least by it's usually like the weekend of Thanksgiving. If you don't have them done by then, in order to file them electronically, you have to wait until January. Actually, somewhere around January, probably around about the 25th or so. So that's another key thing. You want to get it done at least by November. Otherwise, if you mail it, you have a problem. Did they receive it? And if they did receive it, then they have to process it, and it may take a month, maybe 2 months.
Is that interest rate compounded? So, because what you're saying right now is if you have to wait till January, that means that you have, the rest of October, November, December, that you're paying that 7% interest rate too. But is it compounded, on the total amount that's due?
I'm not sure about that, but I just to clarify one thing. Okay, so even though you can't file your tax return electronically, you can still file it by paper.
Okay.
It's just not as efficient, and you don't really know if they have it or not until maybe like a month or 2 later when it shows up on the website.
Yeah, because I know you have a lot of experience, with this, and with the Realty and also with the tax preparation. What are some of the common mistakes you see people making? What would you tell them? You need to think about this again if you're thinking about handling your property in this way, or your what you can be taxed on, or what you think is a deduction, which may not really be, because there are a lot of tax laws are constantly changing, it seems.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what I tell all my clients is that keep track of everything, and that way you don't have to worry about not having the right one. We can always say, no, we can't do this, can't do that. But if you have the expense, if you have a document, a receipt or a check, or a cancel check, a receipt, a bill, on like ComEd, People's Gas, they give you bills where they say how much got paid each month, and also too, you can actually go into your account and they'll added up for you, all what you did for a 12-month period. So the main thing is just keep everything, because it's much easier to say you can't use it than not have it and then find out a year later you could have used it.
Right. It's better to ask and be denied than to be
Right.
and not.
Exactly. That's why I see a lot where
Yeah.
sometimes, especially with small businesses, they use just a basic Schedule C. A lot of times people don't know that everything that they buy for that business, if they go to the store and buy some ink pens so they can write notes about their business, that cost the ink pen is deductible. The trip to the store, if you go into Staples, if you the actual mileage to Staples and back is deductible. So just those little are adding up. That's all the cost of doing business.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, because especially with the price of gas right now,
right?
What we're paying for that. So that's really interesting. What about the realty side of the business? So what are your services like? What do you do? Ordinarily for people with respect to realty. I'm asking that because right now we have this realty problem in the market. Not having enough homes for sale. People are, looking all over the place. They don't know whether they can actually afford housing. People are moving out of cities. They're moving to try to move into areas where there's a lower rate of taxes. But, what kind of services do you offer, and how do you address some of the things that are coming up? I'm looking at what Helena did to, Hurricane Helene did to North Carolina and Georgia, Florida, and some people lost their property, and they're going to have to figure out how to pull out of that. What the total damages are, if they're significant, what those kinds of things. So, what is your business? How do you sort of talk to people about realty?
Okay, so. Well, as you know, with the rates a little bit higher than what they used to be, a few years back, the real estate is slowed down an awful lot. Got fewer buyers because a lot of people on the fence right now. They want to wait until the rates go down. And right now, somewhere around about 6.2, somewhere through there. And for what I've been reading, they'll probably go down to like 5.5, maybe next year. They're not going to go too much, and I don't really see them going down under 5. Tell you the truth, because usually, historically, the only reasons rates went down to like 2, 3, 4% is because there was basically a national emergency with COVID, with the recession years ago. Same way with like gas prices. The only time it goes down to $2 is when no one's driving, so they got to sell that gas, get rid of the inventory. The way they got to move that economy, put those rates down. And when the economy goes on fire again, like it was last couple of years, they had to put the rate up to slow it back down. Now, the other thing too is as far as buyers, even sellers. A lot of sellers who had that house maybe 10 years ago, they're sitting on a mortgage of maybe 3 or 4%. And now their thing is, should we get rid of that? Should they get rid of their mortgage at 4% and go buy a house at 6 or 7%? So that's another issue that's affecting the market. So what I do as far as the real estate, I list homes for owners to sell, and then I also look for homes for people to buy. So that's basically the two services. I don't do management. I don't do that because I'm not the real estate manager type.
Right.
Special, you got to know yourself, and I don't do that really well. I'm
okay.
Sucker for a sob story, and I may say, if you tell me you can't pay your rent this month.
Yeah. I know. Your heart starts to break. Yeah.
Right. So I see that, so that's what I, try to find a house for people to purchase, and then if they sell, I attempt to sell their house.
Have you seen any problem? The veterans have a certain thing with the GI Bill, with all the things that are going on, veterans benefits, for the real estate market. Have you seen veterans having difficulties as well? I mean, some veterans, have done, 20 years of service, so they're covered by, certain benefits, and others have done 3 years, 4 years of service, and, did, OEF, OIF. And, there are benefits for being in the military as far as VA loans and those kinds of things for housing. But what do you see as the impact on veterans right now? And one of the things that is near and dear to my heart is the homeless veterans, that they can't afford housing or can't find themselves situated in a situation where they have a decent place to live, even though they serve the country honorably.
Right, because even with the VA loans, they're a great deal, because like no down payment. Number one, you got to pay your closing costs, but no down payment, and a lot of times you can get the seller to pay the closing costs, so you can really, veteran, do pretty well as far as cash up front. But other than that, though, which is huge. Other than that, though, they still have to be able to qualify as far as employment and the length of employment and credit. Now, the credit score doesn't have to be as high. It can be probably in the low 600s. But you still got to have a good credit score, and you still have to be able to afford the house according to their numbers.
Yeah, and see, and this is the kind of thing that people. My cousin is a federal auditor, and she's retired now, but she was a federal auditor for many years in D.C. And one of the things she used to beg me to do when I was in school, she said, take some business courses because you need to find out what's happening. She said, I cry every day when I'm, sitting there and people are losing their homes, they're losing their possessions. And it is through a lack of information or knowledge on their part about how to contend with it and making sure they're putting things in the right buckets. And so as veterans are going through service right now, you have a lot of active duty people who are going to transition into our, society, back into, life in the general public. It seems like they need to have some kind of understanding that this is a move they're making into another environment. When you're in the military, they give you 3 meals a day, you have a place to stay, right? But when you're coming out, then you have, and especially if you have a spouse and they've been living on a military post with kids, this is really why, we've on this show, America's Heroes Group, we actually had people speaking from the Department of Labor and the importance of connecting to jobs. So you're really making an extremely important point about that bridge between a VA loan that will cover you, but you have to have a game plan in order to move on and make sure you secure and keep that home. So it's really important for people to honor our veterans and making sure that they have jobs. Otherwise, you're going to fall off a cliff, right?
Exactly. I remember when I was in the Guard, especially, even when I was in the Army Reserve. I'm not going to say I always had a problem, but there was always an issue about going to AT, about going away to different classes, and maintaining your job and getting your promotion and getting your raises. There was always. I remember we went on I remember one year we went on a flood. I think that was. It was in the 80s. I can't remember what year it was, but it was in the 80s, 86, 87, through there, 87, somewhere through there. But anyway, big flood. The Guard got called out. We actually, did a lot of sandbagging, stopped the river up. It was in the northwestern suburbs. And I came back to work. I was happy because I was pleased we actually did something. And they wanted to dock me 4 days of work, And
wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, wait, I wasn't out there having fun. And they said, well, you volunteered for the Guard, and I had to go to personnel and, it worked out okay. Turned out that the head of personnel was a major in the Army Reserve.
Always good to have us in certain places.
Right. He told him to leave me alone. And he days. Right. But those type of things, the veterans have a come back to the job if they want to stay in the Guard, stay in the reserve, do their duty to their country, and still maintain a job. It's you have to get an employer that understands this is not just fun and games. This is really doing your duties. It's not fun and games. It's serious and it's necessary. It's needed. And those people like right now, like you were talking about North Carolina and Georgia, Alabama, they probably love the Guard right now, because they live in their homes and help people, in really dire need, leaving their families.
Yeah, and that's something the federal government needs to be.
I forgot about that. But almost every job, I had a problem. Every time I had a job, if I went away to 2 weeks AT, the one, So anyway, I gotta get away from that.
Oh no, that's important because, you're experiencing and looking at the breaking point for our veterans, and that has to deal with their property and with their, so where they're staying, their homes, and it has to do with their taxes. And the government needs to know that, and employers need to know that if we're defending the nation and the reason why you have a place of employment. I actually sat down with Eugene Blackwell. He's the vice commander right now under Maurice Bridges, who's the commander of the state for the VFW. And we went to breakfast together, and I was getting ready to pay for this thing. And this guy walked up and he said, "You're not going to pay." And I said, "I'm not going to pay." And he said, "It's already paid for." He said, "The reason why I have a company is because you two served in the service." Mm-hmm. People don't realize that. And right. He wouldn't let us pay. He said, "You're going to pay." He said, that he's going to pay and make sure that everything is taken care of. He said, because he said there was not enough recognition of the things that people were doing. So as people are coming back, people need to understand that those employment jobs, those the employability of a veteran, is a difference between having a veteran outside on the street and having them in a home with a family after having dedicated their lives to this country. And so that goes back into all the stuff you're doing, the realty, the taxes, and that's the final look at that. And I'm not sure, we have to have you back on, and if you wouldn't mind, and we could talk about what has been the impact on veteran homelessness and job employment. I'm sure that statistics that they're keeping in the VA system, and then also in the labor department and that kind of thing, about how veterans are faring out here with job employment and those kinds of things. So I think this would be a phenomenal on another show to focus on, so what happens when you end up having to pay taxes you can't pay, or you don't have a job, or you lose your job because you went on a deployment, and right. You come back home and you have no real estate, you have no home.
Right. Yeah, and what happens to your mind?
That's right.
Yeah. That's a shot. And that's it's a huge problem. And also too, sometimes in the military, depending on what your job is in the military, sometimes it's hard to transition to something that works for you, because if an employer says, "Okay, you was an infantryman," they may be like, "Well, how does that relate to what we want to do here as far as a well-paying job?" And they don't look at, it's not just an infantryman, it's the discipline that you have, it's the skill that you bring, it's the knowledge that you bring about how things work. Things that you can almost tell a military guy.
Yeah.
A person who wasn't in the military, just by the way they do things, orderly and efficiently. Most of them are like that. A lot of, I won't say most of them, but an awful lot of them are like that.
Yeah, but I want you to plug your business too. So how would I get in contact with you for RG Murdock Realty and Tax Services?
Okay, so I'm located in Hyde Park in the Hyde Park Bank Building.
Oh,
It's,
yes.
yeah, 1525 East 53rd Street.
Yeah.
I've been there for, I started like I want to say 1995. I've been there for a minute.
Wow.
Yeah. My phone number is 773-363-0900. And as far as the taxes, I can do, corporations, S corporations, LLCs, personal tax returns, almost any type of tax return. And I can go back 15 years at least as far
Wow.
as getting old tax. In fact, right now I'm doing someone that has to go back like almost like 8 years.
8
Uh,
years. Wow.
yeah, yeah. So I'm going back, and actually like, quite a few people who haven't really filed the taxes, for years sometimes, and they still need to get them done, and I'm there for them.
Oh, wow. Okay. And those are like corporations too that haven't filed and or haven't thought that haven't seen the seriousness of filing.
Right, because like
Yeah,
well
yeah.
like an S corporation,
Uh-huh.
if you don't file, the IRS charges you $125 a month.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so if you don't file for like 2 or 3 years, that's 125 times whatever, 24 or 36 months.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So so it's very important, to file on time, because in the long run you're gonna pay twice as much.
Twice as much. Ooh.
Yeah.
And then all the stress and the aggravation it's gonna be hitting you. Yeah.
Right. And then also too, it's going going back to real estate investors and trying to buy places. You got to have your taxes done. Which is another issue. A lot of people are self-employed who don't do their taxes, and then they want to go buy a house. And the first, they may be making a lot of money. It's all in the bank accounts, but they never filed the taxes. There's no official record of you ever even paying. Which is so. Is one last thing. I know time is getting short. One last thing, especially for self-employed people, if you don't file your taxes, if you don't pay your Social Security and Medicare tax, you're gonna wind up 60 years old, 62, 65 years old. Go down to Social Security office to get your Social Security and your Medicare, and they don't even know you were around. They even know you existed because you never did your taxes. You never paid into the system. I've seen that quite a few times. Where people have worked all their lives doing, carpentry, plumbing, whatever, on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get 65, they want to go get some Social Security because they're not able now to do any of that manual labor. And they get
Yeah.
very small check, $200 or $300, because they never paid into the system. And they can't get their Medicare because they don't have enough quarters. And it all goes back to self-employment. People have to file, for their own sake, not just for their own sake. And we all know 65 comes quicker than we think.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. They started knocking. AARP started knocking on my door early.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Wake up, it's coming.
One day you're 35, and next day you're 70.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And that's what young people have to get into their heads. That's really a very, very true statement. But we're running out of time. I want you to blast your address location and your telephone number again so people know where to go.
Okay. Ronald Murdock, 1525 East 53rd Street. I'm in suite number 429. My phone number is 773-363-0900.
Okay, Ron. Good. And that's going to be downloadable so people can actually get that and have your advertisement on our website too. But
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, I have someone coming up. If you are able to get on to listen to this guy, this is Lieutenant Colonel Eldridge Johnson Jr. You have to hear his story. This man went from.
I'm going to stay on.
Okay, stay with us. Stay with us. We're going into the next segment, and we are waiting for you to join us. You are going to have a great time.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Market.
I'm Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Market. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Hello, hello. Welcome back. Welcome back. We are here with a special guest, but this is America's Heroes Group Roundtable live stream digital media show. And today is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. And October is Breast Cancer, Mental Health, National Disability, and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I am your host, U.S. Army Flight Surgeon and Iraq Combat Medic, Colonel Dr. Damon Arnold. And I have someone with me. When I first started reading his stuff, I couldn't put his bio down. I couldn't even go to sleep because there was so much energy just in his bio. I was like, is this man real? But I have him on with my, I'm a partner for this presentation with the African Diaspora Association of Public Health Professionals, LLC. But Eldridge Johnson, I'm going to start going back because he gave me a history of, how he was, born in Helena, Arkansas. And I started reading that, and he just exploded onto the scene. He actually got his BA from Chicago State University and a Master's of Military History from the Air Warfare and American Military University. And I'm going to, his military education includes Squadron Officer School, Air Command and Staff College, and Air War College. He received his Master's of Military History degree in the late summer of 2002. Sorry. So he actually entered the military as a Vietnam veteran. And he was a mechanic, an aircraft mechanic. He soloed while he was in high school in a Piper Cub. And then he comes back and decides, I'm going to become a helicopter pilot. And I'm going back to Vietnam for another tour. He goes back to Vietnam. And this man comes back to the United States and then decides that he wants to go into the Air Force from the Army. He ends up flying F-16s. I'm like, I have no idea of how you even make that transition to go from that to that. That is a hero. That's why I'm so happy to have him on the show. He also worked for United Airlines, where he flew many different planes, 777, 776s. He became a captain of a 747. I remember when those first came out. I was old enough to remember that. But he has been in 50, he's been to all 50 states and all 7 continents, spoke to people in 5 different languages on board the aircraft. And I'm like, is this guy human? Because then he came back, he gets a boat, he goes across Lake Michigan back and forth. He gets his certification in scuba diving, his certification in air balloons, his certification in the drones. He gets his certification in fixed wing airplanes. But I'm looking at this guy going like, when did he ever sleep? I can't even imagine him ever having slept. I am so proud of him. He came in a time where it was very difficult, if not impossible, for an African American to achieve the things that he has done. He's a national hero. He has historic lifetime military achievements and a Smithsonian National Museum honor. He has his photograph in there. He worked at the Pentagon. He has worked on security issues for weapon systems. I'm like, this man, I had a conversation with him. He blew my mind for an hour about all the IT technology and how the world is being transformed. I was just sitting there going like, wow, the depth of knowledge that this man has. So without further ado, I want to say hello, Eldridge. And he left the military as a lieutenant colonel. So he even went from, I'm not sure if when he went into Vietnam, it was probably 1 stripe and went all the way up to lieutenant colonel. But very, very proud of this man, as a nation should be. So how are you doing tonight, Eldridge?
Well, sir, thank you very much. I'm very humble with that introduction. I'm very humble. And,
Oh, you're a very humble
uh,
person. I
I,
have to tell everyone, when I was talking to him about these things, he was like, "Yeah, I did that," and I was like, "You did what?" To us, it's like, "You're kidding me." But to you, you're very, very humble. I know Maurice Bridges, who is our VFW state commander, has very high regard for you. And he said, you have got to talk to this guy. You have got to interview him. Maurice was on with Eugene Blackwell, who's the senior vice commander for the state for VFW. And the two of them were like, Eugene is like in awe. When I started talking to him about you, he was like, what? I felt like I was standing still in my life. I want to hear all the things that you did. So let's start with some questions.
Okay.
Why and how did you join the military? You can go and tell that story a little bit more intimately, because it's amazing.
Okay, well, to begin, I was in high school, and I grew up in the projects on the west side of Chicago.
Yeah.
And so I elected to finish high school in the evening. So I picked up a job in the daytime working for the phone company installing telephones for, at that time, Illinois Bell Telephone. So it happens that at the time the war was kind of advancing and getting into a more mature age of the war, and they started drafting people, and I got a draft notice, and I happened to be installing this military recruiters, this Army recruiters telephone. So I told him, I says, I got a draft notice. So what are the procedures for this? Do I have any options? He says, well, if you take an extra year, if you volunteer, then you won't go to Vietnam. I says, well, okay, I'm all in for that, because I didn't know much about Vietnam, but I could see on television that it wasn't a good thing.
Yeah,
and I'm not
a pleasant place.
Yeah. So I did that. I signed up, and I qualified to be an aircraft mechanic, even though I wanted to fly helicopters. I says, I'd like to do that. And he says, well, your scores aren't high enough, so you can maybe try down the line, but no. But I did qualify for aircraft mechanics, so I went in, trained for that, finished that course, and I went straight to Vietnam. So the recruiter. So I went looking for him, and the office was moved, but I didn't look for him until after I came back from Vietnam. So I went to Vietnam and did my duty there, and I was the only black mechanic in the outfit there. There were other blacks, but they were doing other things. So I soon, began to get the hang of things, and I went over, as you said, as a private E1, E2. I think it was the E2, private E2. And by the time I left, I was what they call a specialist 5 or E5, like a sergeant, the lowest sergeant. But during that time, I learned a lot, and I was a very meticulous person at that time. Going through high school, I was kind of a knucklehead. I didn't live up to my potential. It was kind of like, okay, what do I need this for? What do I need that for? But I still learned some things. And the thing that I learned was to, and this was drilled in from my mom that raised my brother and I, is that if you're going to do something, you should give it all your all. You should do your best. And that was instilled And then education was drilled in us because my mom, I think she didn't start ninth grade because in the South, what took priority were the cotton fields.
Mm.
And my grandfather didn't see much value in education. So come cotton season, they had to leave school and go pick cotton for $1 a day, whatever that was. And so she emphasized education, the education that she didn't get. Moving on, the only person that seemed to be doing well was my uncle, who left for the service, for the Air Force. And he was in the Air Force as an aircraft mechanic. So I says, well, okay, that's why I came up with the idea to become an aircraft mechanic. Over there, I was hoping to be promoted to crew chief on the aircraft. That's a person that flies with the aircraft and monitors the aircraft systems. If something breaks, you can repair it, or you can develop a workaround. So I did that. I became I made myself valuable as far as fixing items and mechanical systems, and such that they wanted me to train people, but I was not yet a crew chief. So I've trained people to be crew chief, but I never became a crew chief myself until people were killed, and you're automatically promoted. Given opportunity, because
wow.
Yeah. So what happened was, there was a sergeant in charge of me who discouraged me from either becoming a pilot or actually blocked me from being crew chief. And he figured that he would look good to the pilots if he treated me bad. So, so if he treated me bad, he would look good to the pilots, and he can kind of buddy around with the pilots. And it was my good fortune that he was trying to do that, because he saved my life twice. I trained one guy to be, actually I trained two guys to be crew chiefs, and they got the ship that I trained them on, and they went out and they got shot down, and both of them were killed.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so that's the first time he saved my life by trying to give me the shaft, and the second time I trained a cook. Now keep in mind, I'm the only black crew chief. I trained a cook, and he was Caucasian, and the other two guys were Caucasian also. That got killed. The pilot got 90% of his body burned, and they were shipped to Japan to the burn center. The cook that became crew chief that I trained, they gave the ship that I trained him on to him. 7 people were killed in that, including the guy I trained. So twice this guy saved my life.
Wow.
Okay. So I went somewhere else. I found it was a testing center in Vietnam. So I went to that base and retook the pilot test. I passed it.
Yes.
And so I came back to the States, and I went to flight school. Okay. Yeah. To make a long story short.
Where was that? Where was the flight school at?
The flight school was in Fort Walters, Texas. River Wells, Texas. It's called Fort Walters, and its primary it's a primary flight screen. So if you pass the primary and the advanced, then they send you to Fort Rucker for the finishing, okay, for the turbine helicopters.
Right.
So I went there and to Fort Walters, and I was already experienced crew chief. And keep in mind, I had flown the Piper Cub before, so flying wasn't a big deal. You know, the helicopter was a big deal for me, but it still wasn't intimidating to me.
Right.
And so I did very well with the academics. There were a lot of people that quit the first day because you have these TAC officers like screaming in your ear and convincing people the first day
To quit.
You quit. You know, so I went through that thing, and then they and something funny happened because I was the only Black in my class, and so
Yes.
and I could feel that the TAC officer. Sometimes you can feel people when they're a certain way, just by the way they talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he would make a long story short. They have these inspections every day, and you got to bounce a quarter and do all this stuff and clean your lockers.
Yes.
And you got to notch your shoes, and you wear 2 notches one day and you wear 1 notch the other day. They want to make sure you're rotating your shoes, that you don't just have a display pair of shoes and all this stuff. So it's interesting. It's very disciplined atmosphere, and you march everywhere you go, and you got to eat a square meal and show your hands and all this stuff.
Right.
But I had two roommates, and of course I was the only Black. And my one roommate had never seen a Black person in real life. He only saw Black people on television. So he says, Nebraska. I says, oh, okay, you know. So we got along, and none of us did very well. I mean, they inspected us, and we got demerits, and so you give a pink. And so I got like, I don't know, 2 or 3 pink slips. So everybody in the room got 2 or 3 pink slips. The other 2 guys did too.
Right.
Then one day they told me I had to leave, so I left.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're coming into the process to become a warrant officer candidate, because this is what you get when you graduate. You're a warrant officer. You're a warrant officer 1 when you graduate and get your officer and your wings.
Yes.
Well, when you're waiting to start this class, you're in the snowbirds. So you're waiting for your class to start. But when you wash out of the program, you're in the blackbirds. So they told me, oh, you're shipping the blackbirds because you have X amount of pink slips. So I'm in blackbirds, and I'm saying, my roommates had the same amount of pink slips as I had. Why aren't they here? And the population of blackbirds were mostly Black men. Man, this is wrong. So I'm talking to this one guy. He wanted to fly, even though he maxed he could have gone to West Point, but he opted to come to flight school. And so I go to the IG, the Inspector General. This is a person that, well, for people, I don't know your audience, but this is a person who's in charge of making things fair for everyone. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I went there, and this guy tells me, he says, well, I says, I think I'm being treated unfairly. Are you saying you're being discriminated against? Well, I don't know, but this isn't right. And they had me set up for a not a court martial, but a flight evaluation board, similar to a legal proceedings to take you out of the program. So I said, okay. He says, why don't you let the process take place? So I did. I let the process take place, and in the meantime, waiting for the process to take place, I went back to where they were training, and I asked the other two guys, my roommates, why aren't you guys, what's up? Oh yeah, well, the TAC officer, I was cleaning the office where the TAC officer resides. He worked, there's a wing, you have rooms and everybody's in bunk beds, and at the end of the hall is the TAC officer's office. And so he was cleaning up the TAC officer's office, and he says, I found my pink slips torn up in the waste basket. And they replaced his pink slips with white slips, the other two roommates of mine. And I said, well, can I see those? And he gave them to me, and I pieced them together. I taped them together, and I took them to, at that time, I guess they had like Xerox machines, and I made copies of them. So I went through the process. And at the hearing, there were all kinds of stories that I was doing this and I was doing that. And so I even had a bathroom plunger because some of the guys couldn't figure out how helicopters hover, this and that. So I would take the classroom book, cut the instruments out, and show them, oh, this is how you do this, this is how you do that. Now, so I was kind of trying to help everybody, and yet I'm the one that's out. So I went through the kangaroo court process. Then I went back to the IG, and the IG happened to be he happened to be a black major, and he says, "Well, son, you know, it's kind of hard to prove discrimination and this and that." And I said, well, what about this? And I showed him my puzzle, my jigsaw puzzle that I put together. And I says, they replaced my pink slips. And they replaced my roommate's pink slips with white slips. And they weren't eliminated, and I was. Well, you have proof? Well, I showed him the proof. And he asked me, he says, well, I got two questions for you. He says, do you want to go back to the same squadron where you were training? Or do you want to start in another class? I says, another class. And so there was a change of command ceremony where I was trained initially. So those TAC officers were relieved of duty. And so that is, and from then on, I had like a bullseye on me. I go to the cleaners to pick up my clothes.
Oh boy,
that's the guy. You know, that's the guy. It was very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's like parallel to the civil rights movement. I mean the things that you had to go through.
Oh yeah.
I mean that's a really incredible dramatic story. You know, we're running out of time, but I want you to come back. I was letting you speak because I have a hook in here. I wanted you to come back for another show. You have much more to talk about. But
yeah.
And you were to become a captain of a 747. I have no idea of what it takes.
Well, I apologize for
no. Do not apologize. This was absolutely, people need to hear this story.
Well, but yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much. I mean, it's, it's something that I think that, I don't know what it made me a stronger person, because they couldn't get me out academically because I had a 96. They couldn't change the papers. We took our test in the open, so they couldn't change those. So they tried to get me out on flight, and
wow.
And that's another story, but it paid off. So it turned out to be, it was a lemon, but it turned out to be lemonade.
Yes. Okay, Eldridge, you are coming back on.
Okay.
I want you to agree so they don't think I'm coercing you.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess this is first time I've actually told this story
Wow.
more than one person.
Wow.
But it can be long, and I guess I can be windy. So
No, that was fantastic. So we're going to come on with a long segment with you in the future. But thank you so much, Eldridge. That is an incredible story. And I said I'm blown away by your history about things you've done. So you will be back on. I want everyone to stay with us. Stay with us. We have Stephanie Stapleton coming up next.
Okay.
Senior editor for KFF Health News. But anything else you want to say? And you're encouraging the young people that think they need to persevere and know what they're fighting for. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for letting me tell my story.
Okay, great.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618.
Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Hello, hello. Welcome back. Welcome back. We are here. This is the America's Heroes Group Roundtable live stream digital media show. Today is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. And October is Breast Cancer, Mental Health, National Disability, and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I am your host, U.S. Army Flight Surgeon and Iraq Combat Medic, veteran Colonel Dr. Damon Arnold. I have an exciting guest with me right now, and she's going to really cover something that is, when she sent this article for us to read and to look at, it just blew my mind. So Stephanie Stapleton is a senior editor for KFF Health News, and the discussion is going to be regarding Julie Appleby's KFF Health News article, Vance Rewrites History About Trump and Obamacare. So it's about Senator J.D. Vance, a Republican of Ohio, and what he was actually intimating about on NBC Meet the Press interview with Kristen Welker. But welcome, Stephanie. It's really great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm sure you have a lot to talk about this topic. Have to look at the article. It's very well written as well. So yeah, why don't you lead us into the article? Let us know what this is about.
Yeah. So what's interesting about this article is that it's part at KFF Health News, we have a partnership with PolitiFact, which is the fact-checking organization of journalists. And so we take when working with them, we take specific claims and kind of run them down in great detail to kind of determine, are they true? And there are 5 ratings. I think it's 5. That thing, it can be true. It can be mostly true. It could be mostly false, or pants on fire. Pants are on fire. That's a big deal. But what's very interesting is in doing this, you can't just be like, oh, that's nonsense or whatever. You have to really dig into what the person said and sort of weigh it. Think about all of, there are so many factors behind it. And so with this particular claim, J.D. Vance, he was on Meet the Press. It was a couple weeks ago. And, he said, basically the entire quote is Donald Trump had 2 choices. He could have destroyed the program, or he could have built upon it and made it better so Americans didn't lose a lot of health care. He chose to build upon the plan. And I mean, we were all kind of there, or a lot of us were. What made that interesting was that, you have to take a breath and go back in history a little bit and think. 2016, the presidential campaign. That was before Donald Trump was elected to the presidency, but he campaigned on repealing and replacing Obamacare. That was, and Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act are, interchangeable. Obamacare is the nickname for that measure. But that was just the first step. After he was elected, he worked with the Republicans in Congress to repeal and replace the bill. His efforts failed. But his administration also actively backed legal actions designed to either do away with the ACA or to minimize it, to sabotage it. That's kind of a charged word, but that's what some people would say. And then later, after, as his term continued, he did issue some regulations that sort of took steps that are sort of out of the ACA's purview, which again, many people, many experts who are supporters of the ACA would have viewed those steps as being things that undermine the ACA. So, reaching that conclusion, we had a lot of basis for it. But in addition to that, during Trump's presidency, one of the things that came up in this statement and other statements, because this wasn't said in isolation. J.D. Vance has said it a number of times since on the campaign trail. If you watched the debate last night, you heard him talk about it again last night. So it's definitely in the news. But also Trump talks about like, oh, I saved it kind of thing. And he often points to the fact that, he's like, I helped save people. I helped them save their health insurance. But in fact, enrollment went down. It went down by about 2 million people during the Trump administration. Wow. And the uninsured rates went down by about that much during the Trump administration. So that's kind of how we got to that false rating. But,
wow.
Yeah.
And he was also doing things like programmatic cuts, right, to the marketing and enrollment.
And yes, that gets, I'm glad you asked that. That gets into kind of some of the regulatory steps. The Affordable Care Act, it has the marketplaces where people can go to buy their health plans, which that open enrollment is coming up in November. So people can start thinking about that if they get their health coverage through the ACA marketplaces. But, they're very complicated. And especially when the ACA was rolled out, they're called navigators or assisters. And they were kind of provided for. They were part of the process. Often they came from the state marketplaces or state offices, and their task was to help people maneuver the system, to help them find the plan that they wanted. And during the Trump administration, that funding was really cut. So, which made it harder for people to go shopping on the marketplace.
Yeah, and he was really pushing for the congressional repeal and replacement efforts, right? And you know, I remember that one of my heroes, I met him 3 times in my life, John McCain. His historic move to stand in front of a congressional meeting and put the thumbs down.
I was getting the iconic thumbs down.
Yeah, and that so you know, so that those things were going on too. You know, so he was really working through the congressional pool of people to try to sort of kill it as a piece of legislation. But then he started getting junk insurance plans, right? And
that's again some of the regulatory steps I alluded to.
Yes.
Those were things like, you know, there's something called short-term plans. They're, you know, they don't go the whole period. People have to re-up them at more frequent intervals, and they tend to be less expensive, you know, more affordable, but also skimpier. And under the Trump administration, they extended the life of those plans. So if you were to buy a short-term plan under those regulations, you wouldn't have had to re-up it nearly as frequently. Now, the Biden administration rolled those regulations back, and I think that change just took effect. But I also would be remiss if I didn't say one of the things that gets so interesting about this discussion, like you and I, we just went through all of that stuff that we remember. We were there when it happened. We watched it on the news, you know, the thumbs down, all of that stuff.
Right. Yes.
But this is, you know, around my office, for instance, we've talked a lot about this recently because it's really hot. It's in the news. I mean, as I said, it was last night again. And JD Vance was talking about how, you know, the former president does have a plan, you know, and we previously saw some of those efforts. And those are the things we just talked about. But what is kind of interesting is, and what we've started to figure out at work is that, you know, this is kind of a nuanced issue, because if you look at the ACA and you think like, oh, this was this really great thing because it finally provided a regulatory framework to protect consumers and make sure that they could buy health insurance that would give them comprehensive coverage and you know, pre-existing condition protections and all of those things.
Yes.
But there's also kind of on the other side of the ideological spectrum, there are people that feel like, you know, rolling back those regulations actually is expanding the market to reach people who don't want to spend as much money on healthcare. They can't afford to spend as much money on healthcare. So they're offering different products that may be more appealing. And so that other side of the spectrum, like we got letters to the editor that they were like, you were completely wrong on this. And I feel like that's why, because their perspective, their ideology has them, you know, that this does do good. It does do good to have like a different kind of marketplace. Now, I'm a purist, so I would argue that if you say he rebuilt it, like going back to this actual statement, in getting rid of the regulatory framework, or, you know, at least undermining it, that is not rebuilding it, even if your motives are pure and that you think like, oh, the real answer are these other plans. So.
Right. Yeah. You know, and then, you know, the one comment that he made that really, you know, sort of made me sit up in my seat was, you know, I have concepts of a plan, And I'm like, in the military, I don't like people building planes or helicopters while I'm in them. And then it was like kind of like a deer in the headlights look with that statement. And it terrified me. It's like, people are going on with their healthcare needs every day, every second of every day. So that was worrisome to me. But what do you think is the, now we have this election going on now, and irrespective of what the outcome of the election is, we have got to make sure we protect Americans, the citizens, with healthcare and insurance. And right now we have things going on down in Florida with Hurricane Helene. It's affecting Florida. It's affecting Georgia. It's affecting North Dakota. I'm not North Dakota, North Carolina. And it's really causing a lot of devastation down there. I can only imagine that people are going to need healthcare, coming out of something like that, and need to be protected. So if you drop that, and some of them are going to be financially devastated. So if you're financially devastated, you may not have your insurance plans that you normally had before. If you have an employee-based health plan, and then now the company is defunct, it's destroyed. How are you going to get yourself covered? And for the basic needs you need for healthcare. So I'm really looking at how that's going to affect so many people. Millions of people are affected by this right now. But what do you think is, 20 million people signed up this year, in the marketplace. So, do you think there's still a need for it? It's kind of a rhetorical question.
Again, I guess part of that goes back to, it's like, it's not really my job to advocate for one way or another, but
Right. Yes.
I will say that, there were a lot of problems with the health insurance market before the ACA took effect.
Yeah.
There was medical underwriting. There were, all of a sudden, if you had asthma, maybe your insurance got canceled, or maybe not canceled, but your chronic condition was carved out of it. And if you left your job, you had to prove continuous coverage, or that that your pre-existing conditions would be taken, that coverage might disappear for a certain period of time or forever before a health plan would pick you up again, even at your next workplace. So, I think of those as the battle days. And so whatever happens, I think, I think that people in Congress on both sides of the aisle recognize how popular pre-existing condition protections are.
Yes.
So I think they would tread lightly on, but again, the health insurance marketplace is so very complicated that, it's sort of like you have to maintain this balance or everything kind of tips over. And so you have all of those angles have to be considered before any kind of policy change is made. And that's why people sometimes are so concerned about things like short-term plans or other kind of looser, skimpier coverage, because they're afraid that will skim out of the risk pool the healthier people and, throw the insurance market out of balance again.
Yeah. And then there's a balancing act also, that service members have to play in veterans. So if you, do 20 years and you become a career veteran, right? So you get your benefits and you get, coverage for yourself, your family. If you, only do 3 years, 5 years, you're in Operation Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, you get coverage for your service-connected healthcare problems. But, those veterans who are out there who are, sometimes homeless, or they have families where the families are not covered, it's criminal that we don't have some kind of healthcare system that's affordable for them and their families. So we're not going to take care of the veterans who put their lives on the line, who, ended up getting injured and disabled, for our country. It seems like we need to have something like this in place. This framework is just, it's just morally right. Yeah. So So anything else coming up in the news that you think will impact this? How do you think the Congress is going to react to this if we have a new plan? Do you think it's like a step backwards?
Well, I think most experts that have been quoted in KFF Health News Stories, not just this one, we've cover it very thoroughly. They tend to say that the whole notion of repeal and replace is done. Like, no, that's not nobody's gonna pursue that.
Okay.
It wouldn't be an effort of throwing everything out and starting over. But it would be kind of, if there were to be changes, and I can't say for sure that they are, I don't know for sure what the future holds, but it's sort of what JD Vance mentioned last night, that, he was saying, like, in the previous Trump administration, they did make certain changes, as we mentioned at the top of the show, with like the short-term plans. Vance also mentioned reinsurance regulations, which is really weedy and complicated, I think. But so those things have been tried before, and I think those ideas would be like to slightly reshape what Obamacare is, or maybe not slightly, but reshape it to maybe get rid of some of the regulations. I don't know. Now, if the Democrats take control of Congress or the White House or both, then there's going to be no appetite for those kinds of changes. If anything, it would be the opposite. Like, a big issue for the Democrats coming up, and for the ACA in general, is that the enhanced subsidies, those are the assistance that made Affordable Care Act coverage more affordable during COVID, during the pandemic. And then those have been extended now a couple times. And President Biden has been trying to make those permanent, and they are set to expire. So that's kind of what people are talking about. That's likely to be the first big fight, or a big fight, when Congress comes back next year.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I was thinking about the comparison between this issue and abortion rights. This issue really affects everybody. The health of everyone, pre-existing conditions, and everything sort of falls under this category. And maybe that's what you were intimating, that it seems like even under the Trump administration, there was a resistance internally among Democrats and Republicans about going too far with repealing. So I think that they don't have the stomach for it, like you were saying, because the constituents are going to look and say, I lost my health care. Not a good thing for, an elected official.
Well, and I think that was part of the problem when Trump, during his debate with Vice President Harris a couple weeks ago, when he said that, like, I have, as you said earlier in the show, I have concepts of a plan. That was sort of like, do you? Because during his efforts as president to repeal and replace, there was never a solid replacement plan. And that was one of the reasons why there was some shaky support on some of those votes. And so the idea that he was saying, like, oh, the plan will come out soon, like in the health policy circles, that sort of made everybody giggle, because, that it was like, okay, yeah, next week, it fished in again kind of thing. But who's to, like, maybe they'll turn over a new leaf and offer more specifics. I mean, Vance did offer more specifics to what those concepts might be last night.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about the general insurance pool. So the Aetnas, the Blue Cross Blue Shields, all the major healthcare plans, and there's always been sort of like a push to treat pre-existing conditions a little bit differently. As far as premiums and that kind of thing. And I'm wondering if that's going to be one of the things that starts to creep into this, if you have pre-existing conditions, that we're going to adjust the premium. That's another danger that, can affect families that can't afford to, pay for this.
Right. Well, and you know what, I'll use the exact word again. It's complicated. Healthcare is really complicated.
Yes.
And that means with any kind of proposal, you really have to read between the lines and think it through. Think about the unintended consequences of changes, whether they will benefit or not. I think that's part of figuring out whether any kind of change might be a positive one for, the health insurance marketplace in general.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because it makes it really difficult for political candidates and for politicians in general to try to explain to the American people in a soundbite what this system is about, yay or nay. And it's a complex system, and and people don't really understand how complex it is. So that's a really excellent point. Well, what do you see in what do you are you looking to cover in the whole health arena coming up? You'll have your hands full, it looks like, in health.
Yes. Well, we'll be continuing to watch what's happening with the ACA in the next Congress. And right now, we're listening to hear what the candidates are saying about their thoughts for the ACA, or, and behind the scenes, again, the enhanced subsidies that I just mentioned, that's going to be a very big deal. That's coming up in Congress next year. Another thing that's sort of percolating would be the Medicare drug price negotiations. The Biden administration just issued its first round of drugs that it was negotiating lower prices. And as I recall, the estimated savings would be $6 billion to the government, to the Medicare program, and then another, I want to say 1.5 billion off the top of my head in savings for Medicare beneficiaries in terms of out-of-pocket costs. And, that continues to roll now, of course, in the future. And that's not a switch that anybody would flip right overnight. But, depending on how, there are a lot of people, a lot of experts that might not be crazy about the way, like the pharmaceutical industry, for instance, has been very concerned that this measure might tamp down on innovation. So depending on who's running the show and who's in charge in the future, they might change the way this program operates. They might change the negotiations, change the kind of drugs that are picked. So, and this is rolling out over the next decade. So there's a lot to watch there too.
Great. Well, we've run out of time, but Stephanie Stapleton, senior editor for KFF Health News, very informative. I learned a lot tonight. I know our audience did as well. We have to have you back on because you're you've really explained things very well, and making sure people understand the implications. So I want everyone to stay with us. We have a couple of other shows coming up, which you're not going to want to miss. So thank you again, Stephanie, and take care.
Bye.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome.
I'm Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
And sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. We are here at the America's Heroes Group Roundtable live stream digital media show. Today is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024, and October is Breast Cancer, Mental Health, National Disability, and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I'm your host, U.S. Army flight surgeon and Iraq combat medic, Colonel Dr. Damon Arnold. And I have a very special guest. He actually is working with the DAV. And he told me that, we have some things coming up. So Steve Brahma is a U.S. Army Iraq Purple Heart recipient, veteran, and Hammond DAV Chapter 17 service officer. Thank you for your service overseas. Thank you for your service in this country. And thank you for helping our veterans. And we have a discussion today. But this is the Hammond DAV Chapter 17 updates and upcoming November 11th Veterans Day activities. I think Steve told me before that he was going to give me a breakfast if I come on the 11th, but that later. How are you doing, Stephen?
Good. How are you doing?
Okay, good. Yeah,
and I do owe you a breakfast. Yes.
So it looks like Chapter 17 is on the move in Hammond. What are the updates and upcoming November 11th Veterans Day activities? Because that's a very special day for all of us.
Yes, it is. And, November's a big month for veterans in general. Yeah. DAV specifically, for our area, we have two events that are in November. One is going to be November 9th, and that's going to be at the Dean and Barbara White Community Center in Maryville, Indiana. It's on Broadway Street. It's Elite Fight Night 25, and they're donating part of the proceeds to the DAV.
Okay.
And it's the title of this fight is Support Your Patriot. So it's a veteran who is the promoter of the fight, and it's we want to get as many veterans as we can out there to support it. I think it's something new that, I haven't really seen. So I think it'd be a great opportunity, and I think it'd be fun.
Oh, fantastic. You need to send us that information and we can post it, but I definitely, that sounds like a lot of fun. And that's on the 9th, right, of November.
Yeah, that's on the 9th of November. and tickets start at $60,
Okay.
and the doors open at 5:30. And I'll get you a flyer so we can put that on there. And then on November 17th, it's a Sunday, we're going to have our fourth annual tribute to all veterans dinner at the Hard Rock Casino in Gary. It's off of 8094. And it's we had it. This is our third year having it there, and the casino has been very generous with us, and they have made this a great event for us. The first year we had it, we had Jessica Lynch, the POW from the Iraq War. She was the guest speaker. And it was very touching. And so we're gonna have that November 17th. Starts at 4 p.m. The title of this one is going to be "Winning the Battle at Home." And if anybody wants any tickets or wants some information, they could contact Bob Carnegie at 219-629-0594.
Fantastic. And Hard Rock Casino, huh?
Yeah. They got good food too.
Yeah, and that sounds like an interesting night.
Yeah, take some extra money.
Oh yeah.
How are you doing?
Oh, doing good.
Good.
Yeah. I've been bringing on some incredible veterans. We had one on earlier today. This guy was a helicopter pilot, for Vietnam, and then he ended up going and becoming an F-16 pilot.
Wow.
What a jump.
Yeah, that is.
Really incredible guy. But yeah, so what about the actual Veterans Day? Anything hopping off on that day that you're going to be doing?
The only thing that I know of for Veterans Day is I know they have something at it's in Lansing. It's at the Veterans it's a Veterans Memorial in Lansing. It's the one that has the helicopter. It's by the airport.
Right. I've seen. Yes. Yeah.
That one's a good one. There's also an event that's during the day. It's at Lake Central High School, and it's become a big event because what they do is the veterans go for breakfast, and then they will usher all the veterans into the gymnasium. And when they do that, the whole school is already there, and this school it's one of the biggest schools in the area. So the gymnasium is just filled with kids, and it's like you get awestruck when you walk in there because there's so many people, and it's become a good event. It's they have that at Lake Central on Veterans Day. I'm sorry. Yeah. And I think that starts at 8 in the morning at Lake Central High School.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Yeah. Actually, I had, recently, I'm not sure if you knew him, but there was a General Patrick Ray who passed away he passed away. And then about 2 weeks ago, we had a funeral for him. And he actually was the president of a bank. He was really the person who was the key figure in building the Tinley Park Convention Center, the golf course that's Odyssey Golf Course, and he built a lot of businesses up and down Oak Park Avenue. So he was part of the Sovereign Military Order of the Temple of Jerusalem, which I'll talk to you about later too. But they are actually knighted. He was formally knighted, by overseas. So we had a person from who was a key bishop in Jerusalem come over to officiate his service. So we had people come overseas and around the country. But we have so many people who we have to be grateful for, that are passing on now. They're getting older, and I just got like a shockwave. We had an earlier person on who was talking about breast cancer in women veterans. And the thing that really hit me was like, and this is about 2 days ago, I was working out. Then I started thinking about it. And I said, OEF, OIF happened almost 20 years ago. I was like,
Yeah.
wait,
How
what?
crazy is that? It's over
Right.
20 years.
Yeah. So these people are almost going into their 40s. And it was the time that they need to be coming forward for the, breast cancer screening. So,
Yeah.
so what are some of the things in the DAV that you're doing right now, in chapter 17? Anything popping right now? I know we're going into the winter months and we have too many veterans on the street still.
Yeah.
We just had a stand down at Post 311, that was really successful. We had about 200 veterans come through.
That's
But
huge. That's nice.
yeah. But
I mean,
anything,
I think the problem is
yeah.
that there's, when we have our meetings and there's a lot of veterans that come there and they're coming there for claims work, it's good that they're coming to the DAV for help, but at the same time, you see how many veterans need help, and it's a lot, and it is kind of sad.
Yes. Yeah, and then I see Glenda posted your announcement on the on our link already. These events coming up. I think she probably wants to try to win some money at the casino. So that's
don't we all?
Don't be surprised if you see me there.
When the summertime ends, it is a big time because, it's not just the winter that's coming, but the holidays that come up. And a lot, some of these veterans, they don't have a support structure like some of us have. They don't have the family. And this is when a lot of veterans get depressed, start having a lot of anxiety. And it's a good time to do your buddy checks on them and check on them. Mm-hmm. It's a shame. I was talking to one guy earlier, and we were actually talking about a gentleman that we knew that had passed during COVID.
Oh, really?
And it was sad because nobody really knew where he lived and stuff. So we didn't know how to find him until they found him like 3 weeks later. And it was, it's something that could have been prevented, something that at least we then could have alerted the authorities if something had happened. And he passed from natural causes. It's just, he was alone. So nobody really called to check on him. And, that's some of the things that, we try to reach out to the homeless veterans during this time, but it's not just the homeless veterans. There's veterans that have jobs and have families that they're also struggling during this time as well.
Yes, yeah. And then we have, veterans, the auto place that's opened up, the home for veterans.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that was a big, exciting thing.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So, when you were saying that, you just made me think and realize we need to be going to the hospitals. We need to go to the veterans' homes and give them something for the holiday. Say hello, a candy cane, whatever you can bring to, to help out the veterans. And that's we all should be doing that, and thanking them for their service. If you walk through a hospital and you see a veteran that needs help, and and their family members, like you said, they have spouses and children, and particularly with the elderly veterans passing away, they leave a spouse, and their spouse is going to be by themselves. Yeah, and I know one particular pastor. He was in a service. He retired as a lieutenant colonel, but he was with his wife for 54 years, and we just sat down and started talking because it was the first anniversary of her death. And he was like, wow, he said 54 years. I went over to and put some flowers down and that kind of thing. And it just, it reminded me she's not going to come back. And he just misses her. So just having someone there for them and sit down, have a lunch, or take them out to lunch, dinner, breakfast, and, talk to these people because they gave their lives, many of the things that they missed out on. Actually, from deployments and that kind of thing, with meeting with family members, those things they sacrifice for us to have time to be with our families. So
Yeah.
as citizens, we need to realize, the sacrifice they made. But yeah, you sounds like you're on top of the game. So anything else happening within the post over there, or?
There was one thing that I learned today, and I wanted to share it with you because I don't know if a lot of veterans know about this. I didn't even really know about this. So I went by the vet center it's the Gary area vet center. It's in Crown Point, but they have vet centers all around the area. And, they were telling me about the vet center, and I didn't know the vet center was created by Vietnam vets, and it was an alternative to the VA back when the Vietnam vets, they didn't get good service at the time. So they didn't trust the VA. So they want an alternative. And what happened was it became kind of a success where veterans felt comfortable going there for counseling and bereavement.
Wow.
And you don't have to be eligible for VA benefits to go there. You can so it's free of charge. The spouses of veterans who passed can go there. They can't give you medication, but as far as going there, if you go there, the VA can't access their records, which to some guys is very important to them because they don't want the VA to know, what's going on with them.
Right.
And I found, I've always thought the vet center was connected to the VA, but to find all that out, I think that's a good alternative for some people. And, I actually asked them how many were in the area, and there are approximately 2, 4, 6, there's 7 in the area. And I didn't even know that. Yeah.
7.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's one in Chicago, Forest Park, Orland Park, Evanston, Chicago Heights, and Aurora in the Gary area one.
And they're called vet centers.
Yeah, they're called vet centers. So
wow.
I don't know. I just thought that was a good, So I asked them for the outreach coordinator in case anybody did want to reach out to them. And his name's Kenneth Collins. His father is actually Jimmy Collins, who used to play for the Bulls. Yeah.
Oh,
and he used to coach for UIC. Yeah.
Wow.
So this is, so his name is Kenneth Collins, and his phone number is 219-736-5633. And that's if anybody's interested to, go into the vet center. I like it because I like how the VA they can't access the records.
Wow. Yeah. And that's really interesting because we have so many veterans who are homeless and they have no place to turn. And that sounds like a wonderful option for them.
Yeah. The VA has their programs, like they have the homeless program where if you're homeless, you can go to the VA, and what they'll do is they'll put you on a list where you can potentially get a HUD voucher, but the problem is it takes time. And, when you go to somewhere like a vet center, they have the community resources there where, maybe there's a township that helps with that. Like I know the township around here, they will help you with first month's, or they'll help you with the rent if you're having problems paying or getting into a place. So that, there's options out there. It's just a lot of people don't know what's out there. They don't know what's available.
Yeah. And, and especially people who, disabled veterans, because, it's hard sometimes for them to interact with systems and figure out, how, what's available. How do I get there? What kind of transportation do I have? Those kinds of issues that we sort of take for granted. We just walk to places and, think everyone's sort of operating in the same way when it's not true.
Yeah.
And but that's amazing. So I'm sure Glenda's grabbed that information. It will be appearing on the screen at some point. But that's fantastic. So there are some options for them, and especially for family members too, because if they have children and they are unable to afford insurance for them, we have the ACA. We just had a big talk about the ACA and the importance of sustaining that entity. That we have about 20 million people who signed up this year, who are American citizens, and that kind of support is really needed. But this sounds like it's another avenue too.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But so anything else exciting going on in the world of disability advancement? I mean, we have new things coming out all the time, new technology, new things that can help our veterans, to progress. We have to find a way of making sure we're connecting as well. I always worry about that. Whether those things that are out there that like the systems for reading, for telephonic communication, all of that, whether our veterans are getting it, hearing aids, right? Yeah, and then recently I went in for a hearing test, and they told me, well, you're able to get hearing aids. I was on helicopters and cannons, all that. So they said, and I said, well, my wife told me that years ago.
Yeah, right.
So maybe I don't want them.
That's awesome. Let her hear that.
No. But so
and the VA has made great strides when it comes to technology wise. They used to have e-benefits, which they merged into VA.gov, and they had My Health eVet and then e-benefits. So they tried to merge them into VA.gov, so it was kind of a one-stop shop. So technology-wise, they're definitely advancing at a good rate. I think the problem is, a lot of people are not caught up with the technology, and you know how it is. The VA, it's the biggest government agency, so there's a lot of red tape. But at the same time, they've made it easy in some aspects, but that's only if you understand how to do it. Right. And I like helping veterans when it comes to that, because it doesn't it doesn't have it. The VA is not what it was 20 years ago, and some of these guys are coming for the first time because they heard such bad things about it, or they had a bad experience themselves 30 years ago. So they're coming for the first time, and the PACT Act is what really brought them, because the PACT Act opened so many doors, for Vietnam veterans, Iraq veterans. So, they opened the doors where these guys are coming for the first time, and that's why there's a little bit of a backlog with the VA, because they had a hiring blitz, but just hiring the people doesn't fix it automatically, because you have to train them. You have to, get them acclimated to this, doing claims, and it's, so there's a little bit of a backlog, but it did open the doors to a lot. I mean, just the hypertension alone for Vietnam vets was huge. Right. The VA for a long time said that it was, more because of old age, but when you see the studies and you see how many veterans have gotten that particular illness, it's kind of hard to deny it at that point.
Yeah, and that's another thing that the data is really and I was talking to our former speaker, but it was Eldridge Johnson, and he was the veteran I was talking about with going to the F-16s, and so he was getting into drones and all that. And we had an hour talk about technology, and it was just like my brain was burning by the time I finished. I was having a meltdown, but we started talking about AI and all that. But that's going to have an impact directly on our ability to start analyzing some of this data and to make the connections of things that are happening. The PACT Act was like a tremendous boom for us, for veterans to actually be recognized for things. We didn't have to wait, like the Vietnam veterans, to have the benefits, awarded to us posthumously,
Yeah.
for Agent Orange, right? This was a huge step forward. But then the data that's coming out of it, and the way that they're tracking data right now, is going to have a direct impact, I think, on how veterans are perceived in the future. The burn pits, and how can you, I was looking at some of the reports recently on necropsy studies. So they do these after a person has passed away. So these veterans had normal chest X-rays, right? And they were being seen by private care physicians and some people in the VA, but they were looking at that and saying, well, this chest X-ray looks normal, and they would even do sometimes MRI scans, and say, oh, everything looks great. And then when they did the necropsy studies, they looked at the tissue and found out they were finding metals inside of the tissue, and they were finding titanium. They were finding
Wow.
all of these different things that were actually part of the architecture of the tissue in the lung. And the silica dust and that kind of thing that you get exposed to. We know silicosis can be a really terrifying disease if you have silicosis. But and so they started looking at this and saying, wait a minute, these people do have an impact, a physical impact. We see this here. And that there was also with TBI, they started looking at the gray matter in the brain and saying, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. So this data, I think, is really going to be essential to make sure our veterans are taken care of and followed appropriately.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, the TBI one, I know that one because I have TBI, and when they first explained it to me, you kind of get the sense that it was from something major like an explosion or something major. But when you really look at it, TBI, traumatic brain injury, is the rattling of your brain inside the cranium. And that can happen from a concussion. It can happen from hitting your head on a bunk hard, a fight, a car accident. There's a number of ways that it could happen. And, I've noticed that I have real bad migraines at least 2, maybe 3 times a week sometimes. Sometimes my speech can be, so what happens is I can think of the words, but when I'm talking, it seems like I talk so fast that it comes mumbled. And these are things that you just kind of dismiss at first, but as you get older, TBI might get a little worse. These things become more prominent in how, everyday life. And, it's, how it is, like the Vietnam vets. The Vietnam vets didn't know they had any problems until 20 years later, 30 years later.
Yeah. And they call that a latency period. So it's the same thing like with asbestos for, lung cancer and also, people who have silica exposure in lungs that's talking about silicosis and, mesothelioma you hear about on TV all the time with the lawyers. But, we're running out of time as usual, but we're going to have you back on, of course. And I'm going to get my money ready for the Hard Rock Casino on November 17th in Gary, Indiana at 4 p.m. I'll be there sharp. And also, you have 2 other events that are in our site now, or are on our line. So, but very, very, as always, Steve, it's always wonderful talking to you. And thank you for what you do for our veterans.
It's always an honor talking to you. I love talking to you.
Okay. Thanks.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AH Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618.
I'm Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
Where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. We're America's Heroes Group Roundtable live stream digital media show. Today is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024, and October is Breast Cancer, Mental Health, National Disability, and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I am your host, U.S. Army Flight Surgeon and Iraq Combat Medic, veteran, Colonel Dr. Damon Arnold. And I have someone who's going to give us an incredible story about this particular business. So Joan D. Clay is an attorney and founder and CEO of the Village Legal and Community Project. Very rarely do we see someone who gets their skills together, becomes an attorney, and then turns back to help the village of the community. So I'm really pleased to have you here, but we're going to discuss the Village Legal and Community Project services and how they are unfolded in the community and how you can actually avail yourself of these services. So I should say Esquire Clay, Attorney Clay.
Please call me Joan.
Joan, okay. Joan, let's tell me more about this. What is the Village Legal and Community Project Services? What's that all about?
So the Village Legal and Community Project is a nonprofit that I founded about 3.5 years ago. We're based on the South Side of Chicago. I'm a South Sider born and raised. So during COVID, I really had a chance to kind of think about what was really going on around me. And one of the things that bothered me was that, you know, my community didn't have the resources that it needed, especially in times like that. And so I said to myself, you know, if I could, you know, start an organization, what would it look like? And I literally put pen to paper. started thinking about what we would do, what we would offer, how we would, run things. I called up a couple of people to say, hey, are you interested in being on my board? And did all the paperwork, got our 501c3 status, and we launched. And literally, it's a response to what's going on in the community and people not having the things that they need. So we have three primary areas that we focus on. The first are pro bono legal services, civil legal services. So landlord-tenant issues, parenting time, child support, debt collection, powers of attorney for healthcare and for property, things like that. And then we also have a cohort for people who are interested in entrepreneurship. We do a free cohort where we walk them through for 8 weeks the things that they need to know to have a successful business. So we talk about legal entities and business plans and marketing plans and how do you finance your business and financial statements, all of the things that can be a mystery for somebody who's new to entrepreneurship. And then our third program is geared toward the youth in our community. We take our entrepreneurship program. It's called our BOSS program, BOSS, and we've created a baby boss program. And so we're now working with high school kids who are interested in entrepreneurship. And we go in and we teach them for 8 weeks the tools that they need to know for a successful business. And with both of those, for our adults and our youth, we end with a pitch contest. And so literally it's like they come before judges who are successful entrepreneurs. They pitch their businesses and we award them with prizes like seed money and business plans. Wow. But the legal services are really one of the things that I wanted to talk about because we work with veterans and we actually have an honor grant from Cook County Department of Veteran Affairs. And we've been focused on providing pro bono legal services to veterans because like in addition to like the landlord tenant issues and the parenting time, there are also sealing and expunging issues, driver's license reinstatements, and discharge upgrades for those who have a less than honorable discharge. So, this program for me is hard work. My dad served in the Army. He was a WW2 veteran. My staff attorney, both of her parents are retired military. One of my board members served in the Navy for 28 years. He's a retired Master Chief. So, for me, this is very, very personal because my dad, loved his time in the military and the discipline and the structure that it taught him. But I do know that a lot of times our veterans have issues when they return. And, I think a lot of people are under the assumption that veterans come back and they get all of the things that they need and it's just carte blanche. And that's not the case. And so we're very, very honored to provide pro bono legal services for our veterans.
Yeah, so what kinds of cases do you encounter? Maybe you can tell us, without names and that kind of thing, but what types of things do you see when you're, helping veterans? And, it seems like in those situations, they really need someone that can, who really is going to support them in that effort. So.
Yeah, we see a lot of landlord tenant issues. That's our number one area. We have a lot of veterans who are living in properties that are not where they should be. So there's an issue of habitability. The landlords are not taking care of the properties. They're building code violations, mold, rodent infestations, bed bugs, just all sorts of issues that nobody should have to live like that. And so a lot of times they don't know what their rights are. And so we're able to come in and say, hold on a minute, the landlord has a duty that's owed to you. And these are the things that are their responsibility. And so we help them. We can either do like brief advice and counsel. Maybe they just have a question about what their rights are or how to do something. Or maybe they need limited representation where sometimes we write a letter to the landlord saying, you've got XYZ amount of days to clear up these issues, or we're going to have to withhold the rent or to possibly take you to court. And then we also represent people in court. So we have a lot of people, a lot of veterans who come to us and they have an eviction that's been filed against them. And sometimes they're illegal evictions. But if you don't know the law, you don't know what you don't know.
Yes, yes. And that could be a very dangerous situation because then you start to say things and, I have quite a few friends who are attorneys and, judges, and they, the thing is keep your mouth shut and, make sure that you have representation, the correct representation. And if you don't know that, you can actually get into more trouble,
Yes.
By
I've seen
saying
people
things.
get evicted who had a valid defense, but they didn't know how to present that information. And so unfortunately, they were evicted.
They were evicted. Yes, yes.
We even get evictions sealed when they've been wrongfully filed so that a person's record isn't tarnished. So some people don't understand the process for getting an eviction sealed if it wasn't a valid eviction.
Ah. So, what kinds of, because you were mentioning entrepreneurs and what types of businesses do they go into? It's kind of interesting. Do they sort of parallel themselves after, a legal community kind of view, or they come with different ideas, innovative ideas?
We have like a lot of creative entrepreneurs out here. I've had people start like mobile car washes where they come to you and they'll service your vehicle. And from that, they actually went to car dealerships and got, really lucrative contracts cleaning the cars on the lot.
Wow.
We've had people set up, coffee shops and people who are doing like the marketing, like they do t-shirts and they do business cards. So we've had a lot of really creative business ideas that people have started and launched with their businesses.
Wow. Yeah. And they, what is the age range, that you normally see in that group?
Anywhere from, for our youth, we have 16 and 17-year-olds who are interested in starting a business up to, I've had people in their mid 60s, early 70s who were like, this has always been a hobby or a passion project. How can I turn it into a real business? And so that's what we're there to do, is to have people go from like idea to actual creation. We talk about how to set up your business with the Secretary of State. What's the requirements for that? The different types of entities. Some people don't know. There's corporations, there's partnerships, there's LLCs. They don't know the difference. So we explain that. We've helped people set up nonprofits because they want to actually give back to their community. So they want to find a way to, be a nonprofit and be able to do that work. So we've had a lot of creative, people, and a lot of people who are like, I love to bake, so now I want to have a bakery. So it's just a natural progression for what they've been doing.
Oh, great. So there's still hope for me, even at my age, huh?
Any age. Age is not a factor with this. It's all about the passion and the ability to, as I tell entrepreneurs, it's not a straight shot. There are going to be, hills. There's going to be, it's a rough ride. So you have to be mentally prepared to be an entrepreneur because everybody's not about that life.
Yeah, because there are two places in the country where the Department of Veterans Affairs has a section, but you have the hospital system. So Illinois happens to be one of them. And I think the second other one is in Texas. But you can actually go to the Department of Veterans Affairs that's right next to Jesse Brown VA. So the two of them are kind of conjoined. And I always, so if you do disability claims, things like that, you can go through that section. And they also have business opportunities in there, but I wonder if anyone ever uses them because they say that there are veteran business opportunities that are out there. But this sounds like you actually operationalized it, and I'm wondering if there's a connectivity there, with the Veterans Administration, or how how they allocate funding, if that's something that makes sense.
And also, a lot of veterans may not be aware they can get certified as a veteran-owned business, which has its benefits for them as well, and especially if there's certain contracts that they want to pursue. So that's one of the things that we talk about with the veterans, is that there's actually a certification for a veteran-owned business.
Oh, really? What's that process? What do you have to do to
It's just paperwork. You know the law. It's always paperwork.
It's always paperwork.
Always paperwork. And I have like one of my facilitators who teaches the cohort on certifications. He has a consulting business, and he actually can work with people on, there's different types of certifications. There's different agencies. You can get federal, state, local. It's about figuring out what your business plan is to figure out which certification is in alignment with what you want to do. So like I know somebody who has their like minority owned business certification, and they have contracts cleaning, some of the government offices. So there are reasons why you would want those certifications, because when they're doing the contracts, they're looking for minority owned businesses, women owned businesses, veteran owned businesses.
Yes. So if you're a woman veteran, you actually can hit 3 things at one time.
You can.
Knock
You
it off the park.
absolutely can.
That's
Exactly.
great. That's good to know, because I don't think many people are aware of that you can actually get that, because I've never heard someone say that, I want to be a veteran's owned business, always minority owned business, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
I don't know if
interesting.
everybody's aware of it. So I'm hoping that, to just share the knowledge, because knowledge is power.
Yes, it is. So what do you think people need to know about engaging with your business? How can they get in touch with you?
Mhm.
And okay.
So we're based in Hyde Park. We're literally, our office is right across from Kenwood Academy, but they can email us at info@tvlcp.org. Our phone number is area code 773-234-0027. And then we also have a bunch of walk-in clinic opportunities if anyone, has a question, want to come in. For example, we're going to be at Woodson Library tomorrow from 12 to 2, and we're there the first Wednesday and Thursday of every month. They have a resource fair the first Wednesday, and then we have dedicated time on Thursday. So it's open to the public. Anyone can come in and speak with the attorney. We also have walk-in hours at Olive Harvey College. They're one of our great community partners, and we have time there the second and fourth Monday of every month from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Again, open to the public. They can come in, tell security they're here to see the lawyer, and they'll point them in our direction. And then we're also at Target Area Development over on 79th Street, the second and fourth Wednesday of every month from 10 to 2. So we're committed to being out in the community, so that if somebody needs to talk to us, they can walk in and talk to us. They can also make an appointment to come to our office.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And I have a good friend, and he just retired as a judge, but Bill Hooks, and he was with the Justice Project, with the juvenile justice system that's on 26 in California, and Charles Nesbitt too, another attorney. But they were doing some things with trying to help veterans who were getting into a little bit of legal trouble. But I like what you're doing, because it sounds like you're connecting them to not just getting out of legal trouble, but to having a path forward, which is really important for them to have a job and to have a business that really is. And so I'm really happy about what you're doing. Is there, and how many attorneys do you have in the system? And
It's myself, and I have a full-time attorney, and I have a paralegal. So we are, at the beginning of the year, we're probably going to be expanding, and I'm probably going to be hiring at least 1 or 2 more attorneys and or paralegals, because we're getting, the demand is growing. And so we want to make sure that we have enough, people to service clients. And also I'm very committed to not burning out my staff and making sure that there's this balance of quality between work and home life. So the balance is also important to me in the environment that we create.
Yes.
So right now, yeah,
Okay.
it's my.
Yeah. Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry.
Okay, can you repeat that a little bit, because we were having a problem with the audio, the visual audio.
Okay. No, I
when
was
you were
just saying
speaking.
there's a full-time attorney and there's also a paralegal. And in the beginning of the year, I'm probably going to be hiring a couple more people.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, and I mean, because it sounds like that service is desperately needed. You know, do you, you know, in the current climate of everything that's going on, do you see things getting worse as far as the need that's out there? Because it seems like people are just, I mean, with the economic situations they're going through, with, you know, the divisions in the country, all the stress and, you know, global warming. I mean, everyone is going through so many different issues at the same time. And, um, you know, I'm not sure if this, you know, you see, you know, a heightened need for this, and that it needs to be a supported program.
I think there's always going to be a need. The funny thing is, I was meeting with someone, a funder, and they're like, "So when do you think the problem that you're dealing with will like end, where you won't where you won't be necessary?" And I'm like, "So pro bono legal will almost always be necessary in a
Yes.
capitalistic society because not everyone can afford an attorney. And in
Yeah.
criminal, you know, if you can't afford an attorney, you get a public defender. But it's not like that in the civil arena, although it should be, which is why
Yeah.
pro bono legal services, like what we do and the other organizations out here, it's important that we are able to reach those who, you know, if it weren't for us, who knows where they would be. So I don't think that it's ever going to go away. And we're committed to being here, you know, forever, because unfortunately, there will always be those who just can't afford an attorney. It's not cheap to go out and engage a private attorney.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And you know, as you're saying, Mhm.
I think we may have lost our host, but just for those of you who are out there, if you do have questions, again, you can reach us at 773-234-0027. And our email address is info@tvlcp.org. So we're happy, you know, to be of help if there's something that we can do. If it's something that we're not able to handle, we generally refer people to another organization, another legal aid organization. And hopefully, our host will join us soon or get back in. If not, again, if you have any civil legal issues, landlord tenant, parenting time, child support, debt collection. We help people with power of attorneys for healthcare. There you are.
Yes, they dropped. Somehow it got dropped.
I was just letting everybody know how they could reach us and some of the matters that we handle, and especially for our veterans. We're asked to do a lot with discharge upgrades. We have quite a few people with the less than honorable. Sometimes we see extenuating circumstances that warrant, you know, submitting a discharge upgrade request for them.
Okay, very good. And I was wondering if, and maybe you can explain to people what pro bono means. For
Free.
people it's free.
It's free. We
Is it
don't
for-
charge for our services. We have to follow federal poverty guidelines. So we'll ask people on our application their sources of income, and then we look at the family size, and then if they fall within the parameters, then it's free. There are some clients we have who don't qualify for free. They make too much money for that, but they also can't pay $500 an hour. So what we do is we have sliding scale legal services where somebody may pay $25 an hour. I think our highest is $125 an hour. So if they don't qualify for free, we do let them know what the sliding scale fees are, and we offer help that way. And for a lot of people who are kind of stuck in the middle, so they don't qualify for free, they can't afford, $300, $400 an hour. They're very happy if we can help them for $50 an hour or $100 an hour.
Right.
So we're still
good.
trying to make we're still trying to make the access to justice affordable for people because we understand.
Yeah, because we have a common phrase. We say healthcare is a right. It seems like legal services should be a right. It's basically enshrined in our Constitution, and this is just amazing. I'm so happy with what you're doing. Especially for our veterans. I see. Because I'm involved with the VFW. Veterans of Foreign Wars and the American Legion. And I see veterans all the time, that, we have to sit down and talk to because they're going through a lot of turmoil,
We've gone to several American Legion halls and spoken with some of the veterans. I still have my dad's American Legion uniform.
Yes, right.
He was very active. He was very active with the American Legion. So yeah, we do. If anyone is a member of an American Legion hall and you want us to come out, please reach out to me. We go out all the time and talk to them about different issues that they may be facing from a legal perspective. So we're happy to do any of the outreach that we can.
Yeah, give the information again about how to contact you.
Sure. The phone number is area code 773-234-0027.
Okay.
And then our email address is info@tvlcp.org.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to have you come out to my post, to give some talks and that kind of thing. But we have a lot of veterans who are going through a lot of issues. And, I'm not sure if you get involved at all in estate planning as well.
We actually collaborate. I am on the advisory board at a college here that's just opened up a legal clinic, and they focus on estate planning. So can put anyone in connection with them as well for trusts and wills and those sort of things.
Okay, we're running out of time, but we're going to have you back on, I'm sure. But really great work you're doing. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much.
To put your ability and your abilities and your expertise into doing something so positive for people is astounding. So I'm really grateful for that. Okay, we're going to be moving on to next Wednesday. The next America's Heroes Group show that's going to be coming up. So stay with us throughout things. You can also download our podcasts. We've been having a lot of downloads lately. So you can always look at these shows and make sure that you stay informed. Okay, we'll have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And to our producer, Glenda Smith, she is in the background coordinating everything and making sure things work. To Corazari, all the people back in the StreamYard studio. So thank you again, Joan. Clay Esquire, wonderful having you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.